Yeah! Hello, boys and girls. I would like to welcome you to the latest Trainers Talk. Today's guest, I say we have special guests, but this is the guest that means the most to me.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, good.
Yes. He's been holding that one.
Jacqi Almond. How's it going?
I'm good.
Good. So I wanted to sit down with you is because we sat down in probably one of the first 5 Trainers Talks, and we kind of gave a story. You can go back and check that out of how Calisthenic Fit happened and how we got there and the journey to that point, you know, when we were only like a month or so into COVID kind of situation. And I wanted to follow up and not talk about as much COVID, but talk about certain things that I've seen happen within your career as a trainer, kind of shifting over the past year. First of all, one of the things that has shifted is that you've really took ownership over doing more Pilates-based training.
Yep.
And why is that, you think?
I think one of the things is I was coming back from our 4th child was getting my body back in alignment, getting my balance back, and Pilates kind of allows you to do that. You really have to slow down and you have to connect with your body, and it's not just this like worrying about in a squat hinge. It's you have to start from the top of your body and work all the way down and make sure everything's firing at the right time. And I actually think getting your abs to fire is one of the hardest things, at least maybe for women, that people struggle with is like, how do I get this part of my body to fire the way that I want to? So I think it started off with my own wanting to get my body back to pre-baby.
Yeah.
And then it just, as the knowledge grew, I kept wanting to share it with people who had similar experiences. And I think that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting, because I've worked with several female clients who've just had a baby, and how long would it say it took you for to kind of refine or discover the connection of your core after pregnancy?
Lower abs is the hardest part. And I remember working on the reformer and being like, fire right here. And I kept thinking to myself, I am firing right there. But you've stretched those muscles out. So I would say it took a good 2 years for it to really start to connect again. And that was like consistent work on it. It wasn't like once a week. It was like, okay, I recognize that this is a weakness, but it's also like, I also don't blame, it's a beautiful thing that you just did. It's totally okay. It's just recognizing like this is an area I need to focus on. So I would say it probably took 2 years, but once it happened, your body starts to want to do it naturally, which is nice.
Yeah. And what's the, kind of transitioning a little bit, you're a firefighter, and since the last time we've kind of really had to sit down like this, there's been a couple of fires that you've one or two that you've been involved with, and that's different training. Doing Pilates is great, and it's great from the core connection, but talk about some of the training that you have to do outside of Pilates for your own personal self to kind of be ready for the
fire season.
Fire season, really.
Yeah, it's like a sport, right?
Yeah.
So, and I will return the mirror towards you a little bit. We had a really good conversation about what should we be working on, and I love strength training. I love heavy weights. I love pushing myself, and I've learned to kind of counter that with the Pilates, as you have said. But what I'm really learning is right now at this time, so it's late February, fire season starts to approach earlier and earlier, but now I'm working on a lot of mobility, a lot of range of motion, a lot of like still using strength, but figuring out how to give my body the ability to move the way I want it to versus just being able to push heavy weight. Is like, can my squat get deeper? Can my box jumps get higher? Can my chest open wider? And just working on those things, I think right now is where I'm at. And then as we get closer to fire season, I'm going to start working on building that strength back up. And I think, I'm always working on endurance just because we naturally spin a lot. And as we get closer to fire season, I might work on endurance just in terms of like that slow and steady versus like sprinting on a treadmill. But knowing that you might have to be hiking for miles with heavy weights. So now is a lot of mobility, range of motion, and then as we get closer to fire season, it's going to be strength and endurance.
Yeah. One thing that I find that you've kind of developed a little bit of a niche. There's kind of two niches, but let's talk about one first, and you might not even realize it, is that you combining Pilates, and we've worked with we've worked with hundreds of instructors over the years, and there's not too many Pilates-based instructors that do a lot of powerlifting, kind of strong strength training. So you take the Pilates portion, you take the strength powerlifting portion, and then you take the functionality portion of getting ready to do fire season. I mean, that is a very unique mix. It almost is combining, grace, strength, power. And from a female's perspective, what have you been able to do when you're working with clients?
In terms of using that, I think.
Yeah. So like I would say, in a way, so you take those perspectives, those three perspectives. When you're working, you know how to do the strength training, you know how to do Pilates, and you know how to, like you have your Fireline Fit, which you've done where you've incorporated firefighter type training into a class atmosphere. So that's really a functional and very specific thing. So how do you take those three pieces and integrate them into working with the clients that you work with?
So, well, as you know, every client's a little bit different. But I think what I've seen is as you get better, as your alignment gets stronger and your core gets stronger, and like I said earlier, as it just starts to do its work on its own. You don't have to tell yourself, oh, I have to clench my abs when you're doing a curl, because your abs will start doing that as part of your posture. That's one of the benefits of doing Pilates, is working on your posture and lengthening the muscles a little bit.
As you say that, I'm trying to sit down.
I know, as we're like, but I think, so I take a lot of that Pilates work and I try to incorporate it into those who are strength training, so that, and I like want to stand up and go to the cable machine. But as you do that, all of, I mean, my Pilates people will be like, wrap your abs, that's like, but your body will start doing that. And if this is solid and can support you, you can start lifting heavier weights. You can start increasing your range of motion because you know that your trunk is going to keep you stable.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of allows you to go to that next level, whether it's in strength or function, like you said. And so I hope I'm answering your question a little bit.
I think you are. And what's interesting too is that during last year, sometime in the fall, once kids were going back to staying at home and going to school, they were back in school. One of the things that you thought of and I think has really been very successful is you have these small group trainings, and several of them are mom kind of based groups, people who have kids, obviously. So why did that idea happen, and why do you think it's been so successful?
So, as a mom, I was kind of like just feeling the market and kind of listening to what I was hearing people saying and seeing what people were doing, and I could see there was this not only yearning for connectivity, but yearning to like do something. Yeah. Like, because you start, especially when you have kids and you're homeschooling, it becomes all about homeschooling and are they getting their homework done, and you kind of lose yourself a little bit. And so I just said, you know what, let me reach out to some of my mom friends and just see if they were cool with working out outside. We wear masks, we keep our distance, and I kind of picked like a weird time to start, which was like winter. But I think the need to just feel it, what I kept hearing them say is like, this is me time. This is me time. This is, because they had done the like, oh, I've had my glass of wine, and they were just kind of, they wanted me time. They wanted to feel like they could see their girlfriends again, but also feel like they're doing something productive for themselves. So that's how I think it kind of started. I think it keeps going because the group they're so supportive of one another. Yeah. And I try to make sure that like I share photos of them or videos of them working out so they can show their kids, and like it's helping them feel fulfilled and helping them feel proud of what they're doing and that they have their thing. And so it's been great. I've loved doing the small group, and they all kind of have different goals, and it's nice to they can see each other progressing, and it's worked out well.
Yeah, just off of how you were talking about that, kind of brings up something. And I've had a couple of people ask me, clients, and we work together. We do a lot of things together from a business aspect, but also from obviously a very personal aspect. And one of the things that I think has helped us, with working so close together, is also having some very strong boundaries of what we do separately.
Yeah.
And one of those things, I think, is you being a firefighter, and I have no desire to be one.
Stop recruiting him.
So I have no desire. I'm gonna let you tackle that. One of the other things that, to be really honest, is when you came up with, you talked about the idea of doing these groups, and I was hesitant of that. And I know that was a kind of sticking point, and my hesitation was based off of, I like to have my work in the Napa Valley side, that's where my work is. And when I go over the hill to Sonoma, that's where I'm your husband, that's where I'm the kid's father, and I'm known that first. But you tackled it, and what was going through your head when I was kind of pushing back on potentially that idea?
Well, I think, I obviously, part of our separation of church and state is I also recognize that he is an expert as a trainer. And so as someone, much newer to this field, I take your advice a lot, and I try to sit back and let you teach me, which in a relationship is not always easy to do, but I think we found a good vibe. So in that moment, I think I was listening and I was hearing what you were saying, and I think your points were valid, but I also think I knew the market. I am the market.
Yeah.
And I felt confident that I think this is going to work. I think I can speak to these women. I think that I can train these women. And I think, a lot, or I don't know, maybe what I hear a lot is oh, you do so much. And I think they said, well, if she can do all of that and still come out here and work out, I can do it too. And that's all it took was I got them there once.
Yes.
They felt so good in terms of just moving and doing something for themselves. They were let's keep going. So I think I just kind of knew the market well enough to go, I hear you, but I just want to try. I just want to try and see what happens.
Yeah.
I also wasn't afraid of it failing, but I thought, I know these women well enough that if it doesn't work, we'll be okay.
Yeah. And after doing this, for some time, and also working with several clients over the past year in particular, what have you learned with the type of client that you like working with? What is, if you look ahead, what is the type of client that you feel like will connect with you the best?
So I think, I understand what it's like to live on a schedule and live on limited time. So how do I space out my day that my kids get the attention, you get the attention, my business gets the attention, but I still figure out how to make time for me. So I think my ideal client is someone who's you know what, I am ready, and I'm going to take the time to not every day, but let's say 5 to 6 days a week.
Yeah. I'm
going to take that time for myself, and I'm going to do something for myself to be a healthier version of me. And they're just, they're dedicated to it, and they'll say, you know what, I'm going to do it for 4 weeks, and I'm going to give it a try. And they go out there every day and they show up, and they don't make excuses. And that's really, I think, that they recognize that life is hard, but they also recognize I need to do this for me. And if I'm healthier and I feel better, I'm better for those that surround me.
Totally. Awesome. I mean, I think it's become very apparent that, and this has always kind of been a market of I think in the past year, that the workload on a mother has drastically jumped, and on a family, ability to work with each other and finding a safe way where people can connect. Because you also did a group with some friends and family back east also.
Yeah, virtually.
Yeah, and what was that experience like working with, because I don't work with a lot of family on a regular basis, but you did. How was that experience trying to, give that experience that you have and that expertise towards your brother, towards towards your cousins and things like that?
They were really good about like taking the workouts that I gave them and like just going for it. And like we would obviously talk like, this works for me, this doesn't work for me, this is kind of my current schedule, how can and we kind of adjusted till we found that. And like I know working with family could be hard, but I think I want to circle back to the very beginning where it was like us learning how to work together. You just don't take it personal anymore. Like when we're here, we are business owners, we are coworkers. When we are doing the workouts, I'm your trainer, you're my client. And then outside of it is whatever we want it to be. But we have the same goal in the session, and that is to try to get you to the healthiest version of yourself that you can be. And so with that understanding, we give each other a little grace and patience.
Yeah.
And so far it seemed to work out. You just don't hold grudges. You go like, you know what, that's okay. And then you have to know when to say like, this might not be working. Let's step away before it gets bad.
Yeah.
It's just about understanding. It's that separation of church and state, and it takes time. It takes time.
For sure, it definitely does. And it's kind of one last question I wanted to ask you, and if you had anything to ask me, you can always ask me anything. But is, for people who've been around you, clients, they know this, but they always ask, and I'm gonna ask the question: why do you work so hard?
I don't know any other way. I think there's like always lots of factors that go into it, but part of it is I've done it for so long, I don't know how not to anymore. But part of it is I think everything that I do provides me with some sort of fulfillment. Like obviously you and the kids, like there's no explanation needed, right? But like coming here and working with clients and just seeing them like feel themselves growing is great. Like being in the classes with our members and like seeing them increase their knowledge, it's just like everything feeds back in that. Is that a selfish answer? Because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But I mean, truthfully, like being part of the fire department, like it all just fulfills me. And so it's not work, right? You never work a day in your life if you love what you do.
Yeah.
And so I think that's it. And I think, I get the question all the time, how do you do it? I don't know. You just one foot in front of the other, and you just keep going, and you lean on your support systems when you need to, and have great people in your life, and that's how it works.
Cool. You got any questions for me, or
questions for you?
I don't have to.
Please don't.
I always get nervous.
I don't have any questions off the top of my head right now, and that's not because there are not plenty of questions to be asked, but I luckily get to tap into you a lot in terms of where are we going in the future? What do you, so I am lucky enough to do that all the time. But I will try to think of some questions, and then we'll come back, and maybe I'll do drop down and give me 10.
Well, I will say people need to be on the lookout, because I can see how you've tackled different things in your life. And when you have your focus on and you take your hard work, I know where you're going. So, and that's going to be one of the best trainers for sure. And I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. You're welcome.
I think that's it.